to go ahead and start recording. We are going to be good to go here in just a minute. And it's wonderful to see so many people here joining us, and great to have everybody with us. All right, it's 12 o'clock Eastern time, so we're set to begin. I'll start off with introducing the presenter for this session here. She needs no introduction, but I will introduce her. Liz Settles-Young is a clinical associate professor in the Department of Educational Leadership Studies and executive director of the UK Center for Next Generation Leadership. Dr. Young is the program faculty chair for the UK Principal Preparation Program, and she also teaches in the Superintendent Certification Program. Before coming to UK, Dr. Young served as Chief Academic Officer of Fayette County Public Schools in Lexington, and before that, Superintendent of Jessamine County Schools for 9 years. She earned Principal and Superintendent certifications from the University of Kentucky and holds a doctorate in Education Leadership from Northern Kentucky University. Dr. Young was selected as Kentucky's 2012 Superintendent of the Year. In December of 2019, Dr. Young was appointed to the Kentucky Board of Education by Governor Andy Beshear, and she became board chair in April 2020. She is actively involved with the Kentucky Association of School Administrators and the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents. I am very excited to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Caleb. Thanks so much. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I always like to tell folks which hat I'm wearing today, and I am presenting this today on behalf of the Kentucky Board of Education. You'll see news about Kentucky's new Portrait of a Learner. And then the other hat that I'll be wearing as I present today is on behalf of my team at UK Center for Next Generation Leadership, when I talk about the work that we do to support schools and districts in the implementation of deeper learning across Kentucky. The slide deck is linked over in the chat, and Allie, I'll be sure and put that into the grid as well. I meant to do that earlier today, but let me go ahead and share so that I can kind of march us through the slide deck as we spend some time together this morning. I'll put it in, get it in the right spot here and put it in presenter mode, and then we will jump right in. Thanks to those of you who have your district names on your in your grid, your photo grid. If you haven't renamed yourselves, if you would just hover over your square and find the ellipsis, the 3 dots at the top, and rename yourselves with your, like Brian has done, Brian Lyle Muhlenberg. And that'll give me a sense of who I'm talking to, because we do have some conversations that are place-based, talking about regionalizing deeper learning across Kentucky today as well. So if you need any of the slides, please feel free to use them after today's session. I'd be happy for you to avail yourselves of those, however it might be helpful. To start out with this whole notion of the Portrait of a Learner, that's the term I choose to use. A lot of folks say profile of a learner or profile of a graduate. They're all the same bird. But the definition here from Bob Lenz, who's now the CEO of PBL Works, who've been working across Kentucky in a deeper learning initiative to support folks with project-based learning, describes the learner profile in this way: a community-wide vision statement, specifically about what every learner should know and be able to do as they matriculate through the system. So I see my friend Deneen from Rowan County. We're working with Rowan County. They've actually done this work and now are at the phase where they're ready to operationalize their Portrait of a Learner across Rowan County schools, for example. I tell folks,
Lou,
yes.
Can everybody see her screen, or are you seeing white and black?
Oh,
I just want to make sure. It might just be me.
I'm seeing white and black, but I thought the same thing. I thought it was just
I'm
me.
seeing the same as you.
Oh, Allie,
Okay.
thank you so much.
I just didn't want you to keep going.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I want to share the screen. So let's make sure this one works okay. I am prone to Zoom goblins. All right, now I've got a gray screen. Let me fix that.
Perfect.
It
Working
is?
well.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yes.
Excellent.
Well, hold on. No.
Yeah.
I see.
Let's see here. I don't mind if it's all right with you. I don't mind to share my screen if we
Okay,
are running into issues with it.
I
Okay.
see it.
are we good?
I see it.
looks
Yes,
like we're
ma'am.
All
good.
right,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you so much for not letting me, that's like I'm having toilet paper stuck to my shoe, Allie, and nobody tells me. So thank you. We'll clean up that recording too, I'm sure. So this definition, I think, is really important, the community-wide vision statement. So the development of the portrait of a learner, I think is, I always tell folks, when you get your draft, you're ready for your first graphic and your first poster, then that's the end of the beginning. At that point, the hard work happens. Today, in addition to talking about examining the notion of a portrait of a learner and how it catalyzes deeper learning, we're also going to look at Kentucky's new portrait of a learner and consider its impact on the work that you're doing there at home. So when I talk to folks about portrait of a learner, the big questions that come to mind are kind of why, or probably even more succinctly, why now? And that's what I want us to explore in our few minutes that we have together today. So the world's changing. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time about that. I feel like the EdCamp conversation has been threaded throughout that work. We are in a post-pandemic world. When you look at these photos, if we were together, we'd stop and chat about what you see. We see blue collar, white collar leaders, workers, employees in a variety of settings, but across all of them, you see this need for kind of a new working environment, except for the young woman in the middle there at the top with pencil paper. Everybody else is engaging in a tech environment. And in fact, when we look at the top jobs for 2022, gaze on these just a minute. This resonates with me. This feels like the right list, except optometrist. That just seems weird. But I didn't make up the list. I borrowed the list from Indeed, that company out there that helps people post positions and hire folks. But these are the kinds of jobs that right now, last year in 2022, were at the top of the list. But notice that they're considered top because of the demand, salary, and consistent growth in job postings. Everybody's always surprised that teacher was not on the list last year. Who knows whether the salary issue deflated that opportunity. But when we think about these kinds of workplace learning, this picture right here could frankly be the Ford plant there in Louisville, because they've gone almost entirely to automation and robotics and a lot of artificial intelligence. But this is the world of work that we're preparing our kiddos in Muhlenberg, in Rowan, in Bullitt, in Graves, in Pike. This is the kind of work that we're preparing people to do. I like this one because it reminds me that collaboration is almost always on the list. Forbes, looking at the top employer skills that employers are looking for last year as they reported it, we're looking for these things. So take a minute to just ponder those 15 skills and dispositions. It's frankly a really, really powerful, interesting list, I think. And when you think about your own students, your own children, your own grandchildren, any young people that you love, college students, post-secondary, industry-based certification kiddos, we want them to have these kinds of skills. Unabashedly, we want this. When I talk to folks about portraits of a learner, oftentimes they misinterpret it to be as almost an anti-academic movement, and that's not the case at all, because all of these take good content skills, good reading, good math, good science, good writing, good career tech. All of those things are embedded here, but they manifest themselves in these durable skills that employers are looking for. So that's what the movement is all about. And as you leave today and just kind of ponder all of the learning that you experience across EdCamp, I want you to think about what are the jobs in your region? Deneen and her team have looked really closely about what's happening across the Morehead State University service area, across Rowan County schools and up in that portion of Kentucky. What jobs and opportunities might be most in demand in the near and the distant future for your learners? I don't have time to share this video, but I do want you to watch it when you have a chance. It's one of my favorites. It features our beloved Gene Wilhoit, and he talks a lot about the overarching notion of deeper learning and how these skills are so important to the future of young learners. So do please watch that on your own time. Kentucky, thanks to the work of the 8 educational cooperatives, has begun implementing a $25 million effort across Kentucky over the next 3 years to support you guys in your own regions to understand deeper learning in Kentucky and to begin to implement various aspects of deeper learning so that this tapestry of professional implementation of deeper learning occurs across the state. And so this definition, it's a little dense, but it's a really good one. When people ask me, what is deeper learning? I go straight to this idea. It's taking knowledge, skills, and dispositions and moving that learning to application, taking those competencies and building in students the ability to transfer that learning and apply it to new and complex situations. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about deeper learning. It's the experience that the learner has with support from the teacher, facilitator in the classroom. The Portrait of a Learner at the state level is happening all around the country. Here are some of my favorites. The one that you can't really see as well in the bottom left is from Utah. I love that one because it, to me, really screams Utah. So it is, you'll have an opportunity to look at these a little bit further, but places in New England, Vermont, certainly closer to us in Virginia and South Carolina, Utah, states all across the nation are understanding this idea of a portrait of a learner as a catalyst for the future of teaching and learning. And so here in Kentucky, I'd like to take you back on a little bit of a history lesson all the way to the beginning of CARA. So in July of 1990, the General Assembly enacted KRS 158.645 and its more detailed companion piece of legislation 158.6451. This is still the law of the land in Kentucky. And look at what, in the heading of this is the curriculum for all Kentucky schools. And so take a minute to look at those. I remind folks that if you're not developing core values and qualities of good character to make moral and ethical decisions throughout your students' lives, you're breaking the law. There really aren't curriculum police. Just a little joke. And when your cameras are turned off, I'm assuming you all are just cracking up and that I'm really funny. Sufficient self-knowledge and knowledge of one's mental and physical wellness, grounding in the arts, sufficient preparation to choose and pursue one's life's work intelligently. So I love this statute. My colleague Justin Bathen says it's his favorite statute. And if you're allowed to have one, this would be mine too. And so our roots in Kentucky, all the way back to the Reform Act, are about the kind of learning that a portrait of a learner brings to the table in this conversation. So academic skills are still essential to the work we do. All of this notion of skills and dispositions, in addition to content, academic standards, and knowledge, is part of this idea about redesign. So the movement is an effort to upgrade the design of school, and Kentucky's done that through the United We Learn campaign. You've heard a lot about it. This is a screenshot of the brochure, the paper pamphlet that's gone out about it. It's a 2-pager, actually a nice little monograph of the work, but you can find United We Learn on its own webpage on the department's website. But you'll see that we tout it as a new vision for education in Kentucky. And so since Commissioner Glass has been here, he's worked with hundreds of stakeholders across the Commonwealth to begin talking about what we all want for the future of teaching and learning for Kentucky's P-12 learners. And so it really boils down to 3 kind of central ideas around vibrant learning experiences for every learner, deep community engagement, and innovation, especially as it relates to assessment and accountability. So I've kind of unfettered myself to be able to say, I really believe that this will turn us toward a new vision for assessment and accountability in Kentucky that is good for kids and good for learners. And I hope as early as 2026 that we're talking about moving away from the old No Child Left Behind accountability system that really constrains teachers and leaders to what we know is not, in fact, best practice. But instead, back to Bob Lenz's comments, it's about a community-wide vision for what we want every single learner to know, to be able to do, and to be like. Knowledge, skills, and dispositions. I see Wesley's here from Adair County. Adair County has taken this charge and they are running with how do we really redesign the experiences across Adair County to make this work happen for every single learner in our community. This link, again, you'll have the, you can get to this just with a click through the slide deck, but it's an article I wrote for Kentucky Teacher where I really kind of lean into this notion that the portrait of a learner can be that lever of our committees that causes great change to happen in schools, that it does in fact leverage vibrant learning experiences, deep community engagement, and innovation. This work is not tabula rasa. It started happening about 7 or 8 years ago with these anchor competencies. Some of your all's districts, JCPS Thomas was involved in the work early on. And out of that, that team actually came up with these 5 anchor competencies: critical thinker, empowered learner, collaborator, engaged citizen, and communicator. And notice that this early graphic showed them wrapping around Kentucky academic standards, teaching kids to read, write, do math, science, social studies, language arts, and all of our electives is still the core business. But we want more from them than just those academic outcomes. So this is the early work. And then from that time on, here's some of the earliest adopters across Kentucky who began looking at portraits of a learner, student defenses of learning, students gathering artifacts of their skills and dispositions. And so you'll see just on these earliest adopters alone that this represents every corner of the Commonwealth, and it's grown so much since then. At our state board meeting on October 11th of 2022, the Kentucky Board of Education adopted the Kentucky Portrait of a Learner, and you'll see we went with the first 5, all 5 that had been prototyped earlier on before Commissioner Glass was here. For example, before I was ever a member of the State Board of Education, we felt like that work was really well directed. But across the listening tour, we also heard consistently from preschool and primary folks and from people in the arts that we really needed more of a direct connection to creativity. So we added the 6th one, creative contributor. And notice I personally love the indicators that we selected for creative contributor. Some people, especially high school folks, scratch their head a bit over the use of the word plays with, but I love it. We say that a creative contributor interprets experiences, imagines and plays with new possibilities with curiosity, and creates approaches that are novel, useful, and valued by the world around them. So to me, this speaks of play-based learning in preschool and primary. It also speaks to innovation, entrepreneurship, creativity in the arts and outside of the arts. This is the thinking out of the box competency on the new Kentucky Portrait of a Learner. One of the reasons that I use the term portrait of a learner is that I really do believe that it is for every kiddo in Kentucky. These are skills and dispositions that learners can, in fact, demonstrate, and teachers can, in fact, develop and give feedback on at every juncture, end of preschool, end of primary, end of intermediate, end of middle, and end of high, and on into post-secondary. So this is the early graphic. This may be your first look at it. It's only about a month old. And you'll see that in the center there, we have the Department of Ed's logo, new logo with that young child and all the way up to cap and gown. And then that's circled by these 6 competencies that we hope every Kentucky learner will demonstrate over the course of their time with us in P12 education. One of the things I want to leave you with in terms of tools and resources, I'm going to give myself about 3 or 4 minutes here before I hush and answer questions. But if you do not know Battelle for Kids site, portraitofagraduate.org, I'll go ahead and put that over in the chat. Sorry, can't see my chat right now. Found it. Okay, so portraitofagraduate.org is a great self-help site that is sponsored by Battelle for Kids. And you will have to sign in when you go to the section up in the right-hand corner called My Sketch. But you'll see dozens and dozens of portraits of a graduate from across the US under the gallery, including 20 or so from right here in Kentucky. And this is a tutorial. This is a kind of self-help. You could do this yourself if you're thinking about how you might work on a portrait of a graduate in a school district that hasn't started that district-wide yet. This next slide, I gave you two important links. One is to the portraitofagraduate.org site that I just put in the chat. And the next one is straight to a guidebook, a kind of a how-to get started on this. So even principals, we often work with schools, not whole districts, who engage in portrait of a learner at the school level. And then sometimes that leads the district to develop a district portrait of a learner, or sometimes that school leader just says, I'm going to do this at Graves County High School, and my team and I are going to articulate what we believe is the vision for every graduate from our high school, and we're going to matriculate and pass this work, articulate this work all the way across our school. So again, one of the things I want to kind of put in your mind to chew on, marinate, linger with after this is, what might the new Kentucky Portrait of a Learner mean for your school or district? I do want to clarify it is not a mandate. We did this to model a set of high expectations for Kentucky schools and districts everywhere. But it's up to you to determine what your next steps are in this regard. Eventually, do I think it's going to inform what assessment and accountability looks like? Heck yeah, that's the whole reason I've been engaged in this work all along. But right now, nobody's making you do this. This is a vision. This is a big idea about what we believe deeper learning and practice looks like. So we do have plenty of time for questions. I'd like to pause just a minute. Feel free to go through Caleb if you need to, use the chat, or I'd prefer if you want to just unmute and jump in with any questions that you might have.
All right, I'm out of the district setting now, so I have a question that maybe already people know the answer to, but the Kentucky's Portrait of a Learner, the 6 pieces.
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm a district getting ready to dive into this work, or I've started with this with WKEC, like, why would I change those? Or is the state saying work within those and you decide what describes each of those pieces?
Okay, now you all know that I love Allie Gregory. I did not ask her to ask that question. It was not a plant. But it's a great question, and I bet it was top of mind for a lot of you. So if that's what Kentucky Board of Ed says is a portrait of a learner, let's just take that one. It's a great question, and certainly you could. You could cut the preliminary phase out of the process and adopt those. But here's what you would miss. You would miss place in that. I see Julia nodding her head, and that's how they approached it in Rowan, for example. So the importance of place really can't be understated in this work, Allie, and the importance of process. So how do you grapple with the conversation about what do we really want for every single kiddo in our community, and what's it going to take for us to get there? So the process, I think, is really just as important as the end product. There is no perfect portrait. And I often tell the story of Spencer County. I don't see Spencer in the group today, but one of the things that kind of surprised me when we were working with them 4 or 5 years ago on what a portrait of a learner could be, they kept coming back to environmental stewardship was one of their competencies. And it's because there are dozens of lakes in that county, and they rely heavily on tourism to the lakes for an economic revenue stream. And so they really, and folks who live there want to live there because it's rural and it's natural and there are the lakes. And so they really held this community-wide value around environmental stewardship. And so that was one of the things that they said, we want every kiddo in Spencer County to spend significant time developing the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to be good stewards of this place. That wouldn't have happened, you know, statewide when we're dealing with urban and rural and towns and cities and all of that stuff. So really, what do you value? And whether it's in Fayette or Jessamine or Jefferson or Graves or Adair, what is it that your community wants to put down as a stake? I'll tell you, Allie, that we always see effective communicator on the list. We've not ever done one where that didn't make the list, but we're working with a school district right now, and one of their top dispositions was confidence. I loved that. They wanted their kids to be confident, to look you in the eye, shake a hand, know that they could leave that place if they wanted to leave that place, or that they could choose to stay in that rural area because they had the confidence in their abilities to find work that they love, to raise a family, all of that. So those values laden conversations are really, really important. The other one that we always see is something around collaboration. So communication and collaboration, if you were to go to the gallery on portraitofagraduate.org, you would be able to trace those through pretty solidly. But then creative and critical thinking often take the form of problem solving. There's lots of local decisions to be made before you put that stake in the ground. Great question. Thank you. All right, well, let me just close with this kind of admonition. I started with saying, once you get to the portrait of a learner, and I believe this is true of the state board as well, once you get there, that's the end of the beginning. You've engaged your community, and we have a protocol for that. If you want more information, please do not hesitate to contact me. And that is available on the grid, my contact email, and I'm happy to respond. But once you have your portrait of a learner, then you begin to operationalize that at the school and/or district level. So lots and lots of vibrant learning experiences, project-based learning, passion projects, internships, job shadowing and apprenticeships, lots and lots of deep inquiry where students are making substantive choices about what they learn. So the instructional set begins to change with this idea of academics plus durable skills and dispositions. And that happens all the way down to the littles. Yes, of course, we still teach children to read well, to write, and to do math, but we have larger aspirations for our kids. And then you begin to see things like exhibitions of learning taking place across the district, presentations and even defenses of learning, like in Jefferson, where students at grades 5, 8, and 12 show you how they have demonstrated the development of the JCPS backpack skills over time. Logan County is another district to take a look at, fully implementing. Fleming County Schools, fully implementing. Rowan on the verge of full implementation, really kind of figuring out a lot of the hard work right now. So lots of colleagues across Kentucky to have this conversation with. And the vision gets clearer and clearer. Let me just put in a plug, a little bit of homework. Watch that video of Jean. I think that if you just let that wash over you, you'll have some sense of this is the right kind of work at the right time. And when you talk to your teachers, they're going to say, this is what I went into teaching for. They did not, I mean no offense to say they did not go into teaching to get good test scores. They went in to change the lives, the minds, and the experiences of young learners, and that investment to them matters a lot. So if you believe it, your teachers will believe it, and then the work, I think, begins to unfold as you move ahead. Sincerely, thank you for spending a little bit of time this morning. It was quick. I hope that you can access those resources in the deck. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any follow-up questions. Caleb, I think I toss it back to you to close out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And I think that we need to have the KRS that you mentioned on a t-shirt. So
there you go.
That might be something that I, yes, yes. So, but thank you so much again. And really enjoyed that. It looks like our next session, let's see here if I can find lots of tabs open. Let's see here. Again, lots of tabs open. All right, so our next session will be round 6 at, I believe it starts here in 10 minutes at 12:40. And we'll be hearing from Mike Rutherford. So we'll be back in the main room for a Better Together session. All right. Thank you all, and see y'all soon.